Today, I'm finding out what it's like for a lonely Irishman in Malaga, Spain during the coronavirus COVID 19. So let's find out what it's like for the life of a lonely Irishman in Malaga, Spain during the coronavirus COVID 19. I'm joined with Mark White, who is an Irish photographer originally situated in Paris, France. Where are you now, Mark?
Well, I'm not in Paris, France, that's for sure. I checked Google Maps there a while ago. It turns out I'm in Malaga, in the Costa del Sol, almost on the south tip of Spain,
Okay.
which, as you know, under the current circumstances, is not doing so well as far as coronavirus is concerned.
Yeah, so how long are you in Spain roughly? You were in Paris, France. Roughly how long are you in Spain now?
So I moved over to Paris last September to work as a photographer with shooting the rugby, the top 14. And that was on the weekends. But during the week, I was kind of jumping down into Spain and doing other private work for myself. And it just so happened that 3 weekends ago, the match that I was supposed to shoot in France was postponed because of coronavirus. So I took the weekend off and came down to Spain. And I was sitting in a restaurant in a place called Nurka, which is probably about an hour's drive east of Malaga here, having a lovely meal of tapas when the restaurant owner came over to me and said that they were shutting the restaurant down. So that was probably half an hour after the King of Spain had issued a diktat for all businesses to shut down. That was 3 weeks ago, on a Saturday afternoon, as far as I remember now. So yeah, I've been in Malaga for guts of 3 weeks in full lockdown.
Okay. So essentially, you were basically a quick business decision brought you from one country to another, from France to Spain, right on the brink of the whole lockdown in those two countries, essentially, and of course, definitely in Spain. So tell us about your experience then with the whole Spanish lockdown. I know you just mentioned there that it just happened instantly from a restaurant owner got a tap on the shoulder, but what was the initial couple of hours or even days after that? What was the reaction of the Spanish public?
Well, I mean, apart from the Spanish public, I can get to that in a minute. But my initial impression was I was in a hotel in Nurka, having a meal, and the restaurant was shut down. I mean, effectively, I was allowed to finish my meal, but literally they were pulling the chairs and the tables back into the restaurant as I was finishing up the meal. Um, and then when I went back into the hotel, I was talking to the receptionist, and she said that uh, actually, it definitely was a Saturday now to remember, because she was saying the following Monday, 2 or 3 days after that, they had nobody booked into the hotel and that they were closing down, which was fine. I was coming back to Malaga anyway. Initially there were complaints. You probably know yourself, back 3 weeks ago, we were kind of laughing and joking and putting memes online, and we weren't taking it too seriously, despite the fact that the Chinese authorities had known about it for probably about 3 months before that. We still hadn't really copped that it was getting all that serious. This is only 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then there was initially there was a complaint that the Spanish government was very slow to react to the circumstances. But then word started coming from Italy that it was actually getting serious. And when the Spanish government reacted, they reacted with the full force of what they could. So effectively, from day one, 3 weeks ago, we were told to stay at home, and we were only allowed to come out for essential purposes. That'd be, say, going to get groceries in the shops, pharmacy, or visits to the hospital. We were also only allowed to go out in ones. In other words, if there was two people in your car, you were stopped and turned back, which created difficulties for single parents initially, because they couldn't leave the house unless they could get someone to mind children while they were gone. Um, Anecdotally, and I've seen a couple of incidences of it myself, I haven't actually been stopped by the police in 3 weeks, but I've seen, as I've been driving around, people that have been out walking, not with dogs, because that's a different circumstance altogether, but out walking, and the police just stopping them and asking them for ID and asking them where they were going. And anecdotally, as I say, there have been incidences where people have been fined, I think something in the region of somewhere between 60 and €100.
Wow.
So the only other reason you were allowed to go out was to walk your pets. And when that started off, it was fine. People were going out walking their pets, but then the police started asking for the license of the pet, be it a dog, to prove that you were actually the owner of the dog, because what people were doing was they were borrowing the pets off their friends. And it's just human nature when you're given a rule, you draw a line and you kind of might put a toe over either side of the line. So people were just trying to have a little bit of their own freedom within or along the lines of the rules. Strangely, after 3 weeks, and I know Ireland is only probably about a week in full lockdown, whereas we've been in it, 3 weeks now, you do actually get used to it. I've been hearing reports of people getting impatient and they're complaining that they're bored and they're just sitting around the house staring at the four walls. But over time, you do get used to it. The only issue now is, when is it going to end?
So just to diverse a bit right now, because we can see a lot of scenery around you and behind you, is that a hotel behind you? Where exactly, firstly, are you in Spain?
So I'm just on the coast in the city of Malaga. So there's two main beaches in Malaga. One is called Malgoeta and the other is called Misericordia. And they would stretch the full distance of the urban region. So you're probably talking about two beaches that would stretch either side of the port for probably about 3 or 4 kilometers. And I'm at the western end of Malaga, right at the end of the Misericordia beach. So just to lift up there, you can see behind me, that's actually an apartment block there. Okay. You can see where the police have actually cordoned off the beach with those bollards, the red white bollards behind me.
Wow.
Those apartments are fully occupied. People come out onto the balconies at 8 o'clock every evening. They bang their pots and pans and play their music loud, as some kind of a demonstration of solidarity with those on the front lines, doctors and the nurses, etc. But the beaches, and it's probably a good idea, especially in a place that has the climate that Spain does, the beaches are all, we're banned from walking on the beaches. That's why they have these kind of bollards there behind them. So we can sit here and look at them, but we can't actually walk out on them. Which may become an issue if this lockdown gets extended for any longer period of time, because as far as I'm aware, Spain kind of relies their GDP on tourism, or from tourism, is something around the region of 12%, like an eighth of their annual GDP. 11 million British people, 8 million French, 7 million Germans come to Spain every year for their summer holidays. If they don't come this year, Spain's economy is going to be in serious crisis.
And so obviously, you're isolated yourself, other than the fact that you're outside right now, but you're legally outside and stuff. But have you, within normal, I suppose, local media circles, or just, as you say, Malaga is a tourist resort type place that we're all very familiar with here. So has there been kind of projections there about local tourism, even in Malaga, like the projections, like you're saying, and what's the hope for it, really, to put it positively?
I think if you start with the World Health Organization, the WHO, and come all the way down to the local authority, go through that whole hierarchy, I don't think there's anybody there that's actually willing to make any kind of predictions at the moment. Because we're still at the stage where, even if you look at the Spanish numbers today, we've had 13,800 deaths in Spain out of 140,000 cases. So you're talking about roughly 10% of the cases people have died. But if you look at those figures, they're going up and down every day. They're not really trending in any one direction or the other. Now, there has been, say, the last 3 or 4 days, there's been a downward trend. In other words, the number of new cases is going down, the number of deaths are going down, and the number of recoveries are going up. But it's only 3 or 4 days, and you can't really set future policies based on 3 or 4 days of trending, because at any stage, it may just turn around and start going up again. So I don't think there's anybody who's really willing to predict what's going to happen over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. And if people are predicting it privately, they're probably predicting it without misinformed, or without the information they really need. And that's probably the main issue that I would see going forward, is that effectively people are imprisoned in their own homes without a release date. Like a prisoner going to prison, that has no release date. And the thing that helped you to cope with that kind of isolation and that kind of, let's call it imprisonment for want of a better word, the thing that helps you to cope with that is knowing, or one of the things that helps you cope with that is knowing when you're actually going to be released or when it's going to end. That not knowing is actually one of the most difficult aspects of this whole
Yeah.
crisis.
And even though I suppose other countries like ourselves are earlier on into that whole isolation and holding phase, it's still the not knowing. So tell us, like, what's the mood like out there? Obviously, there's not an awful lot of people on the streets, but you mentioned that you were
Uh,
driving around.
yeah, I, you can't really gauge the mood because 90% of the population are behind closed doors at the moment. The only people you'll see out are the ones that are out for essential reasons, doctors, nurses, going to work on that. But myself and a Spanish photographer friend, we got special dispensation yesterday evening to take photographs. I mentioned earlier that people come out onto their balconies at 8
Yeah.
o'clock every evening in the pots and pans. And the local newspaper wanted photographs of people on their balconies for next week's edition. So we got this dispensation to be on the streets. We had the high-vis jackets, and everybody, all the police knew who we would be if they saw us out there.
Hmm.
And we noted something that we had a chat about afterwards, and it was kind of worrying. So 3 weeks ago, when people first spontaneously came out onto their balconies and were showing solidarity with the frontline workers, they'd be on the balconies for 15 minutes, at least 15 minutes, and they'd be banging and clapping and playing their music loud. When we were taking the photographs last night, we noticed that after about 3, 4, 5 minutes, people started going back indoors.
Okay.
The conclusion we came to, having talked about it afterwards, was that it looks like people are even getting tired of showing solidarity.
So we're on the
Even though
7th
it's their
of April,
friends and the family.
7th of
Even though
April
it's their friends and their
2020.
family, you know?
How many weeks have you seen that particular scene, we'll say, that was longer before on that particular balcony? Many weeks or many days?
It's been consistently 10, 15 minutes. Loud music, banging the pots and pans, clapping hands, kids out, waving to everybody across from one balcony. And you have to understand, I'm in Malaga, and Malaga is a city that is primarily, the residents are primarily apartment based. There wouldn't be sort of housing estates or anything like that at home. So people can see each other from one apartment balcony to another, and they're waving to each other and shining their torches. But that's been consistently 10 or 15 minutes from 8 o'clock every evening for the last 3 weeks. First, now it may have happened a couple of nights ago, I wasn't out. But the first time I've seen any change was last night when we were out taking photographs.
And do you think, was there anything like announced? You said a minute ago that there wasn't really a trend, or nobody official is kind of sticking their neck out and doing any tourist predictions or any, back to the real world type of economic lifestyle.
No,
So what do you
fun,
think
fun,
could have been that reason for that dip in the good mood towards the solidarity of the frontline workers last night?
funnily enough, my first thought, and Juan's first thought after we saw them going back in, was that there might be something good on television and they'd all just gone back in. Or there might be a breaking news on television and someone had called them back into the apartments. We checked that out. There wasn't any breaking news last night. There was no major announcements. So it appears that if you take 100 or 200 people all on balconies in an apartment block and one goes in early, the tendency is that other people will see that and they'll go in early as well. But my point being, or the thing that we were discussing, was that if they were still enthusiastic and not tired or getting exhausted of this show of solidarity, they wouldn't retire back into their apartment that quickly. They'd stay out for the 10 or 15 minutes.
But are you getting
It
the
just seems
vibe then,
a
really,
trend.
that the even though they are showing solidarity with the frontline workers, that the mood perhaps could be beginning to waver a little bit insofar as people are frustrated with not having an end date to this isolation period or lockdown?
Yeah, the word that springs to mind is angsty. Um, so, I have my moments as well when I'm not feeling great about it and not knowing when it's going to end. Um, I haven't worked for 3 weeks because obviously all the French rugby when I was up in France was postponed, probably cancelled now at this stage. And the work that I was doing down here in Malaga was based in the hotels. I think there's only 2 hotels left open in Malaga, and that's generally for tourists that have been kept open generally for tourists that have been stranded here. Um, but I think, yeah, angst was the word that kind of came to mind when I was thinking about it. Um, I heard, whether or not this is true, but I read reports and I heard on the radio that there was looting in Sicily over the last few days, and that was basically people who couldn't afford groceries anymore were breaking into the grocery shops to steal groceries. There's only so much of this imprisonment. I keep going back to this word, but there's only so much of this imprisonment without a definite release date to look forward to that people will take. And we know for a fact that people are grumbling and moaning behind closed doors. And it's only a matter of time, as far as I can see, before that grumbling and moaning comes out from behind those closed doors. Let's call it civil unrest, call it what you will.
And where are you getting the indication of this grumbling and moaning, as far as you can see, that it will come out?
Well, the only reason I started thinking about it was what we saw on the balconies last night.
Okay.
But having thought about it further, it's human nature to yearn for those freedoms that we had 3 weeks ago. I mean, something as simple as, for me anyway, I haven't had a Big Mac at McDonald's for 3 weeks, because I know McDonald's stayed open for takeaway at home in Ireland, but McDonald's shut down. As quick as any restaurant shut down, McDonald's was shut down here, including the takeaway. Or Supermax, similar idea. I wouldn't mind a Supermax burger right now either. But that's, in my mind, that's what I'm, and I know it's only a simple example, but that's what I think about when I think about things that I was doing before the lockdown started. Other very simple things.
But are you seeing any other kind of evidence other than the balcony as such of a change?
Well, no,
in the situation there?
There's a certain amount of hypothesizing on my part as well, that it's just human nature. You know?
Okay. I suppose you have time now to hypothesize about these types of things. What are the other things do you think that other people are doing over in Spain, or have you seen them even when you're glancing out on the beach there or from your own balcony? Do you see people doing strange things, unusual things, different types of people coming towards that area that you never would have seen earlier on in the lockdown, do you think? Or is there anything else you see?
I'm looking down along, well, I'm on the back half of the beach, because you saw those bollards I was showing you earlier on, but I'm looking down along the back half of the beach. I'll just give you, I'll turn my camera around, you can see exactly what's going on down here. So, this is an area, oh, that's my picture. This is an area where, so that's Malaga City there in the distance, but this is an area where typically you would have 200 or 300 camper vans at this time of year, because it's close to the city, it's also close to the beach, and there's facilities around here for people who are traveling in camper vans. Looking there now, we have maybe 8 or 9 camper vans in the whole area. But even the people in, I did actually see some quite strange behavior yesterday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th camper van down, there's a couple in it, and the guy got out of the van yesterday, and it was beautiful weather. It was 22, 23 degrees, and went for a walk. But his walk was just actually around the van.
Okay.
He just made a lap. He just made a lap of his van and just kept walking around and around and around the van. And I was counting the number of times he was walking around. Sure, I have nothing else to be doing.
Yeah.
And I gave up counting. He was walking for about half an hour just around his van. And I think that's possibly because if he walked any further away from the van and the police came around the corner, he'd probably get into it.
And how often do you see police attentiveness around, or where do you see them? What regularity and stuff?
You broke up there in the middle of that question.
So how frequently do you see police? And I presume you're given the 2-kilometre radius of walking distance from where you are.
No. So I'm aware from friends back in Ireland that you have a 2-kilometre restriction where you can go out for exercise. We can't go out for exercise at all unless we're walking a dog. Simple as. So if you're out walking without a dog tied to a leash, the police will stop you and send you home. So
that means the police are very much around every few, kilometres?
They're everywhere. About an hour ago, I was down at the local supermarket. It's called Carrefour. I was down at the local supermarket getting groceries for this evening, and I pulled in. I would have typically, when I go to the supermarket, I'm only there for 10, 15 minutes. I pulled in, and when I opened the van, there was 4 policemen standing there and had a whole conversation about who I was, where I was from, what I was doing. And they just said, you can't park here in the supermarket. And I tried to explain to them I was only there for groceries. They didn't find me or anything. They probably wasted time finding someone from Ireland anyway. But um, they're everywhere. There's a civil police and national police in Spain, and at one stage I've seen army vehicles out as well. So there's no messing. Once the legislation was changed and the diktat came out from the king, these lads were on the street and making sure that everybody was obeying the rules.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Mark. Have you any advice, I suppose, lastly, for the last, given, let's say, most countries, I suppose, are thankfully haven't been as affected as of almost the second week of April now that we are 2020. What advice would you give to others watching this in other countries and that?
Well, I think it's fairly straightforward. If anybody's looking at the coronavirus statistics, and data is a beautiful thing. I was a computer scientist in a former life, and data, you can't. I mean, people take data as gospel, and they should. If you look at the data, Italy is the worst affected country in the world. Spain is second, China is third, and then various other countries after that. And it looks as if Spain has got a handle on it now, and it's just a matter of waiting it out for another few weeks. And I suppose the positive message that I try to leave to anybody that's watching from countries that are maybe a week or two behind the likes of Italy and Spain is that, look, if we can do it, you can do it too. It's just a matter of putting your head down and obeying the rules, keep washing the hands, keep talking to your friends and family over Skype or Zoom or whatever it is. Keep your brain, keep your mind and your body as active as possible. And we will come through this. As they say, this too will pass. But it's just a matter of patience. And let the people who are responsible for working it out take the time and get it right as much as they possibly can.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much and be well over there.
My pleasure. Stay safe, Galiva.
So that's what it's like for a lonely Irishman in Malaga, Spain during coronavirus or COVID-19. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And if you have, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.